Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, I want you to imagine a story you've never been told. A story hidden behind headlines that rarely tell the full truth. We live in a world where media has the power to shape not only opinions but also destinies. And yet there are nations whose true character, sacrifices, and achievements are deliberately kept in the shadows. One such nation is Pakistan. For too long, the Western narrative has painted it with a single brushstroke: conflict, instability, and crisis. But what if I told you that behind those stereotypes lies a country that has stood at the front lines of global struggles, a country with immense economic potential, rich culture, and a role so vital in regional stability that ignoring it is almost impossible? What if I told you that the very things the media does not say are the things that truly define Pakistan? This is not just another political analysis. This is about unveiling a reality that matters for Europe, for the world, and for anyone who cares about truth beyond filtered stories. Stay with me till the end, because once you hear the untold side of Pakistan, you will see why the silence of the US media is not accidental. It is intentional. And once you understand this, you will never look at international news the same way again. So let's begin with open minds and open hearts to explore why the US media won't tell you this about Pakistan. Pakistan's location on the world map is not just a coincidence of geography. It is a powerful reality that shapes global politics, trade, and security. Positioned at the crossroads of South Asia, Central Asia, and the Middle East, Pakistan is a bridge that connects worlds which otherwise remain divided by mountains, deserts, and oceans. To the north lies China and the resource-rich Central Asian republics. To the west stands Iran and the Middle East, while to the east is India, one of the world's largest markets. To the south, Pakistan has access to the Arabian Sea, and through it, the vital shipping lanes of the Indian Ocean. This makes Pakistan a natural gateway for trade, energy pipelines, and transit routes. It is a position many great powers dream of controlling, and yet this importance is rarely highlighted in the narratives of US media, which tends to present the country only through crises or conflict. For centuries, empires have fought over routes that pass through the lands of modern-day Pakistan. The ancient Silk Road that connected China to Europe passed through this region. And today, new trade initiatives such as the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor aim to revive that legacy by connecting Western China to the deep seaport of Gwadar. This corridor is not only important for China, but for Europe as well, since it shortens shipping times, lowers costs, and offers an alternative to congested and vulnerable routes like the Strait of Malacca. Pakistan's location is the very reason why global superpowers see it as essential in their strategies, and why ignoring its importance creates a misleading picture of the world. Geography also makes Pakistan vital for security. The proximity to Afghanistan means that events in Kabul ripple into Islamabad, Tehran, Moscow, and even Brussels. European nations know that instability in this corridor fuels migration, terrorism, and economic shocks far beyond the region. For the world to achieve stability, Pakistan's role as a connector state is unavoidable. The US media, however, often chooses not to emphasize this role because highlighting Pakistan's strategic value would strengthen its global standing and legitimize its independent foreign policy choices. Instead, the narrative is shaped in ways that keep Pakistan confined to stereotypes of conflict and extremism. In reality, geography has given Pakistan a role that cannot be ignored. It is a country that sits at the meeting point of civilizations and economies, one that acts as both a shield and a bridge, and one that is central to the future of trade and stability across continents. Pakistan's role in the global fight against terrorism is one of the most significant yet least acknowledged stories of all time. After the events of 9/11, Pakistan became a frontline state in the war on terror, not by choice but by necessity, given its proximity to Afghanistan and its complex geopolitical position. What many outside observers fail to recognize is the enormous price Pakistan has paid to ensure global security. Over 80,000 lives have been lost, including civilians, soldiers, and law enforcement personnel. The nation has suffered bombings in its cities, targeted attacks on its schools, assaults on its mosques, and countless tragedies that reshaped the social fabric of the country. Despite this, the portrayal in US media often reduces Pakistan to a problem, ignoring the sacrifices that have helped protect not just the region, but also Europe and America from the spread of terrorism. Pakistan's military and intelligence services carried out some of the toughest counterterrorism operations in modern history. Entire valleys, once overtaken by militant groups, were reclaimed through painstaking campaigns such as Operation Zarb-e-Azad and Operation Rad-ul-Fasad. These were not small skirmishes, but large-scale operations involving hundreds of thousands of troops and enormous resources. These efforts dismantled the operational basis of terrorist networks that had previously coordinated attacks not only in South Asia, but also across Europe. Yet, such narratives rarely reach the mainstream headlines in the US, where the focus remains on blaming Pakistan rather than acknowledging its contributions. Beyond military action, Pakistan also took measures to combat extremism on ideological and social fronts. It invested in madrasa reforms, launched de-radicalization programs, and provided education and vocational training to thousands of young people who had been vulnerable to recruitment by extremist organizations. These initiatives are not glamorous enough to make international headlines, but they represent the harder and longer fight against the root causes of terrorism. Pakistan's resilience in rebuilding communities devastated by war and militancy is a story of human strength that deserves recognition. The US media often portrays Pakistan through a lens of suspicion, suggesting it is a haven for terrorism, while ignoring the reality that Pakistan has itself been one of terrorism's biggest victims. This selective storytelling erases the immense sacrifices and undermines the global understanding of Pakistan's role in creating stability. The truth is that without Pakistan's contribution in counterterrorism, the map of extremism today would look very different, and the threats to Europe and the wider world would be far greater. Pakistan is often portrayed in international media as a country burdened by instability and conflict. Yet beneath that surface lies an economy with immense potential and opportunities waiting to be tapped. With a population of over 240 million people, the majority of whom are under the age of 30, Pakistan has one of the largest youth populations in the world. This demographic reality creates both a challenge and a chance, as a young and energetic workforce can become the backbone of economic growth if given the right direction. Unlike the negative narratives often repeated in US media, the truth is that Pakistan is gradually emerging as one of the key developing markets in Asia, with sectors such as technology, manufacturing, agriculture, and renewable energy attracting increasing attention. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a flagship project of China's Belt and Road Initiative, is one of the strongest examples of Pakistan's economic transformation. Through massive infrastructure development, road and rail connectivity, energy projects, and the expansion of the deep sea port at Gwadar, Pakistan is positioning itself as a hub for regional and global trade. For Europe, this has strategic importance because it provides shorter and more cost-determined routes for goods moving between Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Yet the dominant narrative in Western media seldom highlights this aspect. Instead of focusing on opportunities, the coverage remains stuck on security risks and political instability, ignoring the fact that Pakistan is laying the foundations of long-term growth. In recent years, Pakistan's digital economy has also seen significant momentum. Startups in fintech, e-commerce, and logistics are raising millions of dollars in investment from international players. A young and tech-savvy population is embracing digital platforms, making Pakistan one of the fastest-growing mobile banking and e-commerce markets in the region. This is a story of innovation resilience that rarely finds its way to American headlines, which prefer to showcase negative stereotypes rather than highlight entrepreneurial success. Agriculture, too, remains a key strength of Pakistan, with fertile lands that not only sustain its own population, but also provide opportunities for exports in rice, textiles, and other goods. Combined with its large consumer base, Pakistan represents a growing market that global investors cannot ignore. The reluctance of US media to acknowledge this economic potential is not accidental, as downplaying Pakistan's growth helps maintain a narrative of dependence rather than progress. The reality, however, is that Pakistan is steadily carving out its place as an emerging economy with a future far brighter than the stories told about it. Pakistan is often seen through the lens of geopolitics, but what is overlooked is the incredible richness of its culture and the resilience of its people. This land has been home to some of the world's oldest civilizations, such as the Indus Valley, which flourished thousands of years ago and laid down the foundations of urban living, trade, and craftsmanship. From the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro to the Mughal-era monuments in Lahore, the cultural depth of Pakistan is immense, and it reflects a continuity of history that connects the past to the present. Its traditions are not only preserved in architecture and art, but also in music, poetry, cuisine, and festivals that bring vibrancy to daily life. These elements of identity are rarely highlighted by the US media, which instead presents Pakistan as a place defined only by conflict, ignoring the richness that makes it one of the most diverse cultural landscapes in Asia. What truly makes Pakistan unique is the resilience of its people. Over the last few decades, the country has faced earthquakes, floods, wars, and countless challenges. Yet its people continue to rise and rebuild with extraordinary strength. Villages destroyed by natural disasters are rebuilt by local communities. Cities struck by violence return to life with remarkable speed, and families broken by loss still hold on to hope and faith. This resilience is not accidental, but is rooted in a spirit of unity and survival that has carried generations through hardship. It is a quality that defines the nation far more than the negativity projected by international narratives. Cultural richness is also seen in the diversity of languages and traditions within Pakistan. From Punjabi folk songs to Pashto poetry, from Sindhi Ajarak to Balochi embroidery, each region adds its unique colors to the national identity. Pakistani cuisine, with its spices and flavors, has crossed borders and gained global appreciation, while its music, from Qawwali to contemporary fusion, continues to inspire audiences worldwide. The creativity and artistic expression of Pakistanis are proof of a society that, despite facing struggles, continues to produce beauty and inspiration. The strength of Pakistan lies not just in its strategic location or political importance, but in its people, who carry an undying spirit of endurance and pride. Their culture, traditions, and resilience form the backbone of the nation and offer a very different story than the one often told in American media. Pakistan plays a role in regional stability that is far greater than what is usually recognized by the outside world. Its geographical position places it at the heart of South Asia, directly influencing events in Afghanistan, shaping the balance of power with India, and managing close ties with both China and the Muslim world. Each of these relationships impacts not only the surrounding region, but also the interests of Europe and the wider international community. When Afghanistan collapsed into conflict after decades of war, Pakistan was the first to bear the brunt of the refugee crisis, hosting millions of displaced people and absorbing the economic and social strain. Its stability has often acted as a buffer for Europe because waves of migration and the spillover of extremism are felt far beyond South Asia. Yet this stabilizing role rarely makes headlines in US media, which instead chooses to emphasize friction or criticism. The rivalry with India also puts Pakistan in a position where its actions directly influence peace or conflict in the region. The tensions between the two nuclear-armed neighbors make Pakistan's restraint and diplomacy essential for preventing escalation. It has repeatedly called for dialogue and peaceful resolution, understanding that conflict in South Asia would not only devastate the region, but also disrupt global trade routes and security. The fact that a responsible approach to this sensitive relationship often comes from Pakistan is overlooked by international narratives that prefer to cast it as an aggressor rather than a stabilizer. Beyond immediate neighbors, Pakistan's close partnership with China and its outreach to Central Asia make it an important link in connecting Eurasian economies. Energy pipelines, trade routes, and regional security arrangements cannot move forward without Pakistan's participation. Europe, seeking alternative energy and trade routes, indirectly benefits from the role Pakistan plays in keeping these projects alive. At the same time, Pakistan has worked closely with Turkey, Gulf states, and even Western powers in mediation and peace talks, often acting as a bridge where others have failed. The US media tends to ignore this complex and balancing role because acknowledging it would mean presenting Pakistan as a responsible actor rather than a problematic one. The truth is that Pakistan has time and again been the country that absorbs shocks, prevents crises from spreading further, and pushes for dialogue in situations where instability could engulf entire regions. Its influence is not just regional, but global. And stability in South Asia is impossible to imagine without Pakistan at the center of it. Now, one of the most overlooked realities about Pakistan is the way it has chosen to build alliances beyond the influence of Washington. And this independence is a major reason why the US media often portrays the country negatively. For decades, Pakistan was seen as a close ally of the West, particularly during the Cold War and the War on Terror. However, over time, as global power dynamics shifted, Pakistan began to diversify its partnerships, strengthening ties with China, Turkey, Russia, Gulf countries, and increasingly looking toward Europe for trade and cooperation. This independent foreign policy challenges the traditional dominance of the United States in the region, and the US media reflects that discomfort by shaping narratives that make Pakistan appear reliable or problematic. The China-Pakistan economic corridor is the most significant example of this shift. By allowing China direct access to the Arabian Sea through Gwadar port, Pakistan has created an alternative trade and energy route that reduces global dependence on US-controlled sea lanes. This is not just an economic project, it is a geopolitical transformation for Europe. It opens possibilities of faster and cheaper trade routes. But for the US, it represents the rise of a multipolar world where Washington's dominance is no longer guaranteed. Instead of acknowledging Pakistan's strategic vision, American media frames the project as risky, unstable, or solely a Chinese move, ignoring the fact that Pakistan has chosen this path for its own future prosperity. Pakistan has also nurtured strong ties with Turkey, which itself is asserting a more independent role in global politics. Joint defense projects, trade agreements, and cultural exchanges are signs of a relationship that bypasses Washington's approval. Similarly, Pakistan's outreach to Russia, particularly in energy cooperation, signals a willingness to break away from old dependency. These steps show a country determined to create balance in its foreign policy, refusing to be confined to a single sphere of influence. The US media often fails to present this independent stance as a sign of maturity and sovereignty. Instead, it portrays Pakistan's choices as betrayals or shifts toward instability. The reality is that Pakistan, like many other nations, is simply seeking to secure its own future in a world where power is distributed more widely. By forming alliances with multiple partners, Pakistan is ensuring that it is not isolated or dependent on any single power. This independence is what makes Washington uncomfortable, and it is why American media rarely tells the world about the confidence and clarity with which Pakistan is charting its own course. In conclusion, Pakistan is far more than a narrow and incomplete picture often painted by US media. It is a nation defined by a strategic geography, its sacrifices in the fight against terrorism, its rising economic potential, and its deep cultural richness. It is a country that carries the burden of ensuring regional stability and one that dares to shape its future through independent alliances and partnerships. To reduce Pakistan only to a place of crisis is to ignore its role as a bridge between regions, a hub of opportunity, and a society of resilient people who continue to stand tall despite every challenge. For Europe and the wider world, understanding the real Pakistan is not just about fairness. It is about recognizing a nation whose choices and contributions affect global peace, trade, and progress. And I want to leave you with this reminder. What the media chooses not to tell you is often where the real story lies. Pakistan's story is one of strength, sacrifice, and vision, and it is time for the world to see it as it truly is. Good luck to all of you in your own journeys of learning and discovery, and thank you for giving your time, attention, and open minds to this conversation today.